Hi, welcome back. In the last part we finished up here and we've just got our kind of high poly or high polyish cylinder here. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this bevel that I've got, as a demonstration purpose. So rather than making the whole thing again, because it was built with construction history on, I can just go in and take that bevel off. So if I click the object, go to the channel box, have a look under its inputs, you'll see a poly bevel. I can turn the fraction to 0 and the bevel will disappear. I can also then go in and edit, delete by type history, and this will put us back to a nice, clean, pristine object. Now the other thing I was going to look at was this reference image we're working on is not the best in the world because it's still showing the wireframe. So I took the liberty of creating a different reference image. So I've just got a reference image version 2 here that has no wireframe. Now obviously that reference image is going to be at a bit of a different size, but that's okay. I can just scale down the components I've made. It's not a good idea to do that when you're halfway through the process, of course. And now this one. So realistically, this reference image just makes it a little bit easier for us to see what's going on without all those blue lines in the way. Now, towards this, we can also tone down this reference a bit. If you've got a reference image with a very white background or a dark background, you can come in here, and in this case, then I can adjust the color gain to gray that out a little bit. I can also adjust the alpha gain to make it a little transparent, and that normally helps quite a bit when you're looking to line things up with the reference. I find this much easier to see now. Okay, so without any further mucking around, let's get on with the modeling of our cylinder. And the first part is this part that comes out here and is kind of split like so. So I'm going to use the multi-cut tool for this, but you can use the insert edge loop on an older version. So I'm going to go to multi-cut. I'm going to create the first edge loop here, as we'll need one, the second one here, and we'll need one here, and that's here and here. And basically I'm just putting an edge loop anywhere that I'd need to change this. So there, and I won't need an edge loop at the back because we can use a bevel for that. Alright, so let's create this portion here, which goes both up there and down there. So I'm going to go on to face mode, which you can do by selecting face mode on the multi-cut tool too. And I'm going to select both groups of these faces, and I'm just going to extrude them outwards. Now I've got too many faces there, I think. Let's just make sure I've got just these ones. And once again, extrude outwards. Okay. Now, if you're finding your extrusions kind of all over the place, you can just hit reset settings, and that will bring it back to default. Then I'm going to use the left mouse button to drag it out to where it is on the reference. And to get this slope here, the reason why I cut this edge was because I could now go to edge mode, which on the multi-cut tool is just here. I can then press Q to get out of the multi-cut tool. Double click this edge loop to select it, click R to scale it, and bring it back like so. And that way, if we go into the perspective view, I get something that looks like this. Which, if we check the reference here, is pretty much what I'm after. Now, the reference appears to be very hard-edged, and ours does not appear to be very hard-edged. I can't really see that nice hard edge there. So in order to fix that, I'll just double click that entire edge loop and hit bevel. Now I can either go to edit mesh edge bevel and do it there, or I can do it with the bevel tool here. But if I go back to object mode now, you'll see I've got what appears to be a harder edge. Now let's come in here, and if I look here, I'm just going to pull this edge out just a little bit proud of this, and then I'm going to bevel this edge as well. So select the edge, select bevel, and I want a very, very small bevel in there. Okay, this will also help us to get that, much, much harder edge, you can see. Now we will go and harden the edges again in a minute, but just for now, I just want to make sure that the basics of this are looking right in the viewport, and it's looking like crisp, hard, clean edges. Okay, so let's get on with the rest of it. Now we've got to cut into the actual cylinder here. So again, we would need to allow for that cut. Now I've put one edge loop in, I need another one. Let's put another one in, face mode, select these faces, and I'm still on the multi-cut tool. So if I let go now, it'll put another edge loop in there, which I don't want. So press Q to get out of the multi-cut tool, select downwards like so, and once again you can just do a extrusion downwards. So reset the extrusion, and let's extrude downwards so we've got a little lip. Okay, and then again I would go in and bevel the top edges of these, but we'll do the other bevels in a second. So Q for selection, select these faces, extrude in, down to there. Okay, now let's have a look at what we're looking like. Alright, we're looking pretty good. Now I seem to have accidentally at some point put another edge loop in here. So if you found you've done this, you can always just select the whole edge loop and don't press delete on the keyboard. If you simply press delete on the keyboard, what will happen is the vertex that are left over, so here there would be a vertex. If I just hit delete now, the vertex will stay. So what you have to do is press shift, right click, delete edge, and that will get rid of the edge and the vertex, so it doesn't leave any extraneous geometry behind. So now we're kind of looking like a pretty decent hard edge shape. So now it's just a case of going in and setting up those chamfers. And really the difference between a chamfer and a bevel is a chamfer will have one edge. I'll show you. So let's just go up to bevel. So we can do that by pressing the space bar, edit mesh, edge, bevel. And under the attribute editor now, the channel box, I will have our latest bevel, where I can turn the fraction down to say 0.1 or even lower, 0.05 in this case. Then you'll see I've got a very small chamfer there. It's got, you know, one face between it. Now that's a chamfer. If I were to put two segments in, that's more of a bevel. Okay, on most hard surface stuff I normally simply chamfer the surface. Now if you're using the modeling toolkit, you can also of course select the edge around, and I've still got the multi-cut tool selected, so Q, select the edge around, get the modeling toolkit, bevel, and then control the bevel by just sliding the mouse backwards and forwards. Okay, so it depends how accurate you need to be. And once again, now I can just press G to repeat the last command, and it will give it the same bevel. So again, select the edge loop by double clicking, G, and there we go. And for the back, G, and I want a fairly big bevel on the back piece. So that's pretty much all our beveling in done, but still the surface could look a bit harder maybe in between. So there is a couple of ways to harden an edge. If you want it chamfered like so, then you can just chamfer it. If you want it hardened without putting a chamfer in, so in this case I don't really want a bevel in between these pieces, but I do want this edge to appear a lot crisper than it does. So how this is achieved is through the normals. I'll just select the whole edge, go to normals, harden edge, and you'll see that immediately hardens that whole thing up. If we go back to object view, you can see now this is a much harder edge, and we can come in and actually see where those hard edges are on our model by going up to display, polygons, and then there'll be a hard edges here. There we go, hard edges. And you'll see what happens is our hard edges are then highlighted in this darker, or sort of lighter in this case, green. So there's a hard edge there, that's good. We've got hard edges pretty much everywhere we would want them. Now because I want this to look like very sort of cut steel, I'm actually going to harden these two edges up as well. So once again, spacebar, normals, harden edge. There we go. And now it's looking much more hard-edged as a model. So if we hadn't have started with this high-res or slightly higher-res geometry, you know, it would have been difficult to get these kind of small, subtle chamfers in. And you can make them a bit bigger if you want them to appear a bit prominent. But what they'll realistically do at render time, these will catch the light with a very hard edge, which will make your kind of shiny metallic or even dull metallic objects look very, very solid. Now, if we smooth this, you'd end up with something that looked more like that, which is obviously not what we want at all. So, you know, sometimes best to start unsmooth. We just check that we've got everything we need, and I'll disappear back into this view and check that it matches the reference. If it doesn't, of course, you can do some adjustments. Now, the bevel that I had on the reference object was obviously bigger, and you can then just adjust that in the bevel settings. This was a bit this way, so sometimes you'll need to come in and do some tweaks, and this matches, so that matches. Okay, now the last thing was this component here, which was actually added in afterwards. So in order to get that component, all I'm going to do is take a box, standard poly box, and then we'll get it into position, get it on the reference kind of lined up there. Oops, and I've selected the wrong object. You can use the F keys to swap in between the different modes, vertex, face, component, whatnot. The reason I am not is because they're also assigned as hotkeys for my recording software here. But I'd advise you to maybe get into the habit of using those keys, F8, F9, oops. And actually just go to object mode, because it makes the selection quite a bit quicker. Okay, so I should have a box that's about the right size there. And we'll scale it in. And I know this is in the exact center of my object where I want it, because I haven't moved our objects here. I haven't moved anything in the Z-axis. So everything that starts out will always be in the center, or at least the center of the grid on the Y-axis. Sorry. Okay, so there we go. There's that one. And now we would need to bevel this in. So again, edge, and you can just select the edges you need to bevel all at once for something like this. Hit better off going edit mesh, bevel, and there's a bevel around that object. Just gives it that nice highlight. We can check to see if those beveled edges have come in as hard edges, which they should have done, but you know, never hurts to check. Let's just go to display, polygons, hard edges, and there we go. You can see those are all hard edges. Okay, so that's how you create a very hard-edged object with these nice chamfered bevels. Alright, so I'll be back in the next part when we look at creating our first tubes, which is a completely different technique altogether. So I hope you stay with me for that, and thank you very much for watching.